and joking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Better every week.
Welcome, my friends, to this fine little audio and video program known internationally, I think, here in Mexico. That makes it international, right?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. Known as Smoking and Toasting. So, because there's this one guy I know who, lives in El Paso, but he actually lives in Juarez, right across the border.
Oh, right.
And he listens. So, we're international.
That's close enough.
Yeah, that's right. That works for me. Welcome to Smoking and Toasting. It is show number 105, and it is the cocktail show today with Peter and Cody. So we'll be introducing them in a few moments and talking cocktails. And these guys really know cocktails. So I'm hoping to pick stuff up because so far I've and I use this word very loosely. I've perfected about 3.
I don't know, man. I can make cocktails. I can make a vodka soda. I can make a whiskey soda.
Yeah.
I can make a whiskey.
A whiskey,
I'm
just
down.
a whiskey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Well, see, I don't count something like the screwdriver.
Yeah, I'm
right?
I'm joking about it. I am the absolute worst when it comes to cocktails.
Oh.
I make them so. I never know how much liquor to put in there, so it's always incredibly strong or non-existent, and I'm terrible at it. My wife is wonderful at it.
Well,
I'm bad at it.
I will tell you, I have, and again, I use air quotes here because it's perfected is a very strong word, but I feel good about. I can consistently make these 2 things that people seem to really like when I make them. One is a really, really good margarita, which I've talked about on the show before, and I figured out the secret to that one. There was a secret. I didn't know it at first, and I do know it now, and that is that every margarita recipe that you read, like on the internet or in a book or anything, just invert the amount of tequila versus the other stuff.
That's the secret.
Right, because they'll tell you to put 1 ounce of tequila and 2 ounces of all the other stuff, and that is incorrect. It should be 2 ounces or 3 ounces of tequila and 1 ounce of the other stuff, and then you're good. And then shake and serve. And the other one that I'm pretty good with now is the dirty martini. I make a pretty good dirty vodka martini. But I really was trying to make this new whiskey cocktail that I had one of at one of these Festival of Bourbon whiskey events. And so I took a picture of the sign.
Which one did you have?
I had the cane. It was the cane break punch, which was made with fire and cane, right? So, but I didn't have any fire and cane. But I thought that's okay. I'll use a different whiskey, and I had taken a picture of it. But the picture doesn't say how much of each thing to use, right? So I'm on the web trying to, and of course there's no recipe on the web because that's a cocktail they made up for fire and cane. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, what other recipe is like this. I had all the other stuff, but I didn't know how much to do. So I made these last night. My wife came home, and I was like, okay, you got to try this. And so we taste it, and she goes, that's pretty good. I said, yeah, I think actually it's a little too whiskey forward. Let me adjust. So I made the second batch, and then it was a little too sweet, not enough whiskey. So I poured the 2 together and shook it again and re-poured them, and it was pretty good. We took a few sips, and then I made martinis. So that was the evening. But,
it makes me wonder if I'm such a whiskey fan because I just suck at mixing it with other stuff.
I don't know.
I can mix it with ice and I'm okay.
Oh, dude, it is so much easier to drink whiskey straight than it is to make a really good whiskey cocktail. So
I got it down. I got depending on the ice I use, but I can use 1 or 2 pieces out of an ice tray, or I can use 1 big round ice that I have. I put the right amount of whiskey in there, and then I go turn my little filter water thing. I go whoosh. Perfect every time.
Yeah, well, all right.
Every time, Eagle Rare, wonderful.
Well, I'm very psyched to have people who do actually know cocktails on the show today, and I have a lot of cocktail questions because I really want before Christmas parties.
Now, when you say cocktail, do you mean like the movie cocktail? Or
no, not at all.
No,
not at all. Oh, yes?
It's my favorite. I like it.
That's your, okay, all right, good. I don't know. I've been to the Ready Room. And
the look on his face is so dry, it's hard to tell if he's actually joking or not. Like, that was amazing.
I've never seen you guys throwing the shakers up in the air and all of that kind of stuff.
It just never comes back down.
Or they don't come down predictably.
You go through a lot of shakers that way, which I understand. So, all right. So we will talk cocktails. I'm very excited about that. But Ian, we got to talk whiskey sniff because I'm so excited.
The whiskey sniff. What is that?
The tickets are on sale now
what are you talking about? What is this whiskey
smoking
sniff?
and toasting event? The whiskey sniff. So here's the deal. It's the tickets are available at Eventbrite. So Eventbrite.com and search whiskey sniff. Or you can probably just search sniff and it'll come up.
Right.
But anyway, this is all happening on October the 10th on the upstairs patio, B&B Butchers and Restaurant, which is our sponsor for the show. They're at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and they're in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. This will be in the Houston location, upstairs in the area where you can smoke cigars, and the Whiskey Sniff is going to be an incredible event.
Now, trust me, if you haven't actually been to B&B, this is a great opportunity to go down there and check out that amazing patio.
Yeah,
I don't know if you guys have been up there, but they got this whole patio. The ceiling of it is a bunch of louvers, so they can adjust it for sunlight, for rain, whatever.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely amazing. So fantastic.
And it's going to be October, so the weather should be absolutely perfect. It's October 10th. It's a Wednesday.
Should be great.
And so B&B will be passing around lots of food. When you walk in, you will be handed a bag with cigars in it. At least 3 cigars, maybe more. We'll talk about that in a few moments. And then there's going to be whiskeys everywhere because Ian has taught us the proper way to go about pairing cigars and whiskey.
It's all about the nose.
It's all about the whiskey sniff. So run through how it works, Ian.
So the whiskey sniff is basically you will find your cigar that you want to smoke for the evening. You'll find it in your bag that we give you on the way in. You select which one you
several
want.
different styles.
You select which one you want. You'll light it up, smoke it for just a few minutes. You get about a half inch into it. You get that flavor, that profile in your palate, nice and settled in, so the cigar, really, really, really get the full flavor of the cigar. And then you get to walk in and select one of many, many, many whiskeys. Or even, I think we're going to have some tequilas there. And
some rums and tequilas.
Some rums and tequilas there. You get to go in and smell which one is going to go with the cigar.
So I'm going to throw just a few names out at you that are going to be available beverage-wise, okay? I understand several expressions from Balvenie and Glenfiddich. Tullamore Dew will have several expressions there. The new Fistful of Bourbon. 4 Roses will be in the house.
Pretty excited about that too.
4 Roses and 4 Roses single barrel.
Nice.
So and then they're also bringing a special surprise bourbon from 4 Roses. So they're really
pretty exciting.
Really getting into the play. And then, are you familiar with Heaven Hill, right?
Uh-huh.
So they have a product called Sacred Bond. It is a bottled in bond brandy, aged 4 years in bourbon barrels. It's amazing, and it will be available for
I can't
pairing
wait to
with
try
cigars.
that. I'll be trying that for the first time there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very unique. So we're really excited about all of this. Oliva Cigars is in. One of your cigar selections will be from our friends at Oliva. And thank you, Trenton Smith, for
he's so
helping
cool
to get us involved. And thank you to the guys at Stogie's, by the way, for getting involved as well. And then we are expecting to be able to sample B&B's House Blend, which is the B&B Houstonian, which is a really good cigar. We're excited about that. It looks like, I don't know if all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but it looks like Alec Bradley will be involved. So you know how much I love the Alec Bradley cigars. So.
I just want to give out a little spoiler alert on that B&B blend.
Yeah?
Big, dark, and delicious.
Big, dark, and delicious. There you go. So that's just a little bit of the information. Go to Eventbrite and get your tickets now because... the reason you want to get your tickets early for this is the first 50 tickets sold wind up with a bonus cigar inside their bag when they arrive. No matter how much everybody's getting, and everybody will get the same amount of cigars except for the first 50 ticket holders
one extra,
who get one extra. And tell me about it, Ian.
This is going to be the new Ringmaster Inch from E.P. Carrillo. I talked to Mr. Alan Denny. He's got 50 of them he set aside for us. Now, I haven't had the Ringmaster, so we may only be giving out 49 of them. The 40. I'm sorry, you probably need one too. The first 48 that come through the door.
I said 50. We're gonna have to stick to it.
So I have had the previous iteration of it. I haven't had this one. It's supposed to be amazing.
Yeah.
And I like the first cigar I smoked on the 100th episode was that. Inch, and it was like one of the smokiest cigars ever.
Oh, yes, I remember
awesome.
that.
Yeah,
because I was sitting next to you, and your cigar was putting out about 3 times the smoke volume of what I was smoking. So anyway, so we're really excited about this. We're looking forward to it, and you do need to, it's only a very small amount of tickets actually that are going to be sold. I think 125 tickets max. Yep. So this thing will sell out. It'll sell out well in advance. So if you want to go, you want to. I think Peter's destroying the chairs already.
That was me. Yes.
In the but if you want to go, you need to get your ticket quickly for this thing. So a couple of quick things I wanted to say. Thank you to Trey Boring from Cigar Rights of America, who was our guest on the show last week and who was, as usual, fantastic.
I finally got to meet him.
And you finally got to meet him. Yes. And I don't know if we ever thanked Brandon and Sean from Platypus Brewing, who were our guests the week before. What a great couple of guys.
Oh, I thanked them.
What amazing beer.
I went out to that event that night and I brought my bottle of Malort so they could try
so
it.
You thanked them.
I thanked them with Malort.
Well, all right. So
obviously these guys know what that is.
Yeah. So Brandon and Sean, I just wanted to then say we really do actually like you, and
even though we brought you
Malort, we'd love to have you come back on the show. Ian, we got a full show today because we're going to be trying 4 different cocktails from the Ready Room and I'm just so psyched because I can see the colors of the cocktails already as they've been a little bit pre-prepared. So really psyched about this. And then we also there's so much else going on, including I have a beer that I'm so excited to talk to you about. It's a Eureka Heights beer, so you may already be familiar with the beer, but I have a new wrinkle about it that I'm really excited to share with you. So that's all coming up. But I wanted to ask you, it's been a crazy busy week for me, but I have had a chance to enjoy several really good cigars. What about you? You smoking anything interesting this week?
Interesting, yes. I sat down with a friend of mine. He picked up a couple cigars, and we've been just waiting for the opportunity to sit down and smoke. So last night I had a little bit of time. He goes, "Hey, cigar night?" I said, "Yes."
Yes.
He picked up a couple of these Christian Arroyo First 20 Years in a Solomon size.
Oh, interesting.
And we were looking forward to this, and we did a whiskey sniff. So he goes, "What do you want to drink?" I said, "Well, let's figure it out by doing it properly." So we went and lit our cigars, set them down after a couple minutes, went inside, and we ended up actually drinking Old Forester with it, which was pretty good. It's pretty solid. Not very expensive, but it's what smelled good and it tasted great. The cigar had a great construction. It lit beautifully. It burned nice at the first part of it. It had some interesting notes. It was really a lot of toast and a little butteriness and some coffee notes coming through, and that's all it ever did.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
For a moment,
not what I was expecting you to say.
There was an almost medicinal or minty flavor, kind of early on. That went away. Then it tasted like just toast, maybe a little bit of walnut shell kind of flavor. Not bad. Like there's nothing bad about the cigar.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and cut this short because I want to hear about your cigar. This one was very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It didn't do much for me overall. I would have been happy if I paid $8 for this cigar. It was an $18 cigar.
Oh, yeah. No, that's when you know you're in trouble.
On the price to quality scale, where 5 is you get what you pay for, that's a 3.
That's a 3. That may be one of the lower ratings I've ever had you give a cigar.
It was completely underwhelming.
Yeah, and just again to review for price to quality, everybody thinks, it's a 0 to 10 scale, but we haven't ever given anything a 10 because 5 means you get exactly what you pay for. If it's above a 5, it means, wow, that was even better. Like I would have been
better.
I would have still been happy if I'd paid a little more for this. If it's below 5, it means you paid too much. And in this case, that's what you're saying, and pretty substantially.
I don't want to be harsh about it because I haven't. That's the only cigar I've ever had from CLE that has been, I think, under a 5 ever. I love almost everything I've had.
Right, and you've reviewed them before and loved them. Yeah,
I was blown away by the fact that was actually mediocre at best.
Interesting.
So,
well, I had
you don't always win.
So I had a winner this week, which I will tell you about. It is the Matilde Renacer Corona. Matilde is the creation of Jose Sejas. Jose is basically the guy who first blended and first created, back in his old job, Romeo and Julieta and Monte Cristo. Back in the day when those cigars were like,
those little unknown ones.
Right, when all these custom boutique brands didn't exist, and those guys were the real deal. And what I'm talking about is the Dominican and the non-Cuban blends of those, not the original Cubans. But he was the guy that basically put those blends together. He is now involved in Matilde, and this cigar is made with Dominican and Nicaraguan fillers and a Dominican binder. But the thing that makes it really unique is they use an Ecuadorian Habano wrapper, and it's cut just one time by the rollers. So in other words, they don't chop it up and use it in different pieces as they wrap the cigar. It's a single leaf that's used from the foot to the head. So you're talking about a pretty large leaf. You're talking about a good-looking leaf because they're going to use it for the wrapper, and then they cap it also with a single leaf. It was a beautiful cigar, really smooth. The pre-light was toasty and nutty. I picked this up actually when I was in San Antonio on my little getaway at Fink Cigars, which I talked about on the show last week. Shout out to those guys. Great little shop there in San Antonio. So the cigar was beautiful, pre-light, toasty and nutty, and so was the cigar at first. Light, and then here came all this complexity. There was wood, there was coffee beans as it smoked, there was this wonderful toasty flavor, and even a little bit of kind of I love that sort of dry cocoa powder finish. It had that. Some of my favorite cigars have got that. Medium bodied, and I have to say, I was really impressed. I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know much about this brand, but it was much more complex than currently at least the standard brand Romeo and Julieta or Monte Cristo. Now, those cigar lines have some of the cigars in their lines that I think are maybe equivalent to this. But if you just pick up one of the sort of midline of those, this is a better buy for the money. It was about a $7 cigar, worth every penny, price to quality. I give it a solid 6.
Nice.
So I would have been quite happy paying $9.
So we hit both sides of that scale today, huh?
So we were 2 above and 2 below. So that's the way it works. Okay, I'm anxious to get to cocktails. Plus, we have some interesting beers to taste. We have an Oktoberfest from Left Hand, and I mentioned Eureka Heights. We will be tasting their Mini Boss IPA, but you're just gonna love. I don't think you've seen the can yet.
They have you found one of the cans. I haven't seen it yet.
Yes, I found them for the first time in cans.
Right,
and it is now my favorite beer can.
Joel told me it was happening.
Ever of all time. Yeah, so we'll get to that coming up. It's Smoking and Toasting. We will be right back with Peter and Cody from Ritual and the Ready Room, and we will talk cocktails.
Awesome. You guys did great.
I toasted my neck.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, and it is show number 105. It is our cocktail show with Peter and Cody, and we're going to get to cocktails in a moment. Ian, just before we do, wanted to mention that, and I haven't checked with you to see if you've had a time to see the whole show from Chris Hart's Whiskey Neat show. I know you had at least started watching and listening to the show.
I think we started something.
Yeah, I think we did, and so it's really interesting. In our I'm not going to go into the whole story here because it'll take up the whole show.
Not to mention, we'll be talking about it next week.
Well, that's exactly right. It has to do with the stance that we took on no longer being willing to buy and purchase Nat Sherman cigars because of a letter that their parent company sent to the FDA supporting the current legislation that is in place and saying that they did not believe that premium cigars should be exempted from that legislation. On Chris's show, and by the way, love Chris Hart. He is as good a friend of the show as exists. We support anything and everything he does. But he had a show on, he and Alan Denny, where they went back over, because we went on Chris's show and talked about that. And he had a show on then last week with Alan Denny, who is with EP Carrillo, where they basically operated as apologists for the Altria, the cigarette company that owns Nat Sherman, that sent this letter. And guys, Ian, all I can say is we should have been there because all the stuff they said made sense. but they left out hugely important questions.
Right.
So Alan is actually going to be on our show next week, and maybe we should invite Chris to come on as well, because he's always welcome on the show.
That'd be fun.
And I think we'll kind of get to the bottom of it. I don't want to punish anybody unfairly. And for the record, let me correct one thing, just in case you're watching that show. I never said, and will continue to not say, that you, whoever's listening to this, should not buy Nat Sherman cigars. I said I can't buy them. I can't buy them. I can't smoke them because of that stance. To me, when you choose to boycott something, that's something personal. Like it's not something. It's something I believe in that strongly. I'd love to tell you about it. Whether you believe in it that strongly or not is up to you, right? And so, and I never used the word boycott either, by the way. I just said I'm done. I'm done. I'm out. So it'll be interesting to see whether Alan, who has now taken on the role of unofficial apologist for these guys, can talk me back into it next week.
There's always another side. And
Right,
Alan's such a great guy
I love
anyway. So
Alan,
if anybody can do it, maybe it's him. I love to see what he's got to say.
And I love Chris
Love
Hart.
to get in here and ask the questions.
And I love Chris's show, and it's very interesting, very informative, but important questions went unasked on that show. So we will ask them next week, and then we'll see what those answers are, and we'll see where we go from there.
I think that'll be awesome.
So I think it'll be fun. So, all right. Sorry for that somewhat vague tease, but all will be explained on show number 106. In the meantime, we have much more important details to get to, and they're about cocktails. Please welcome Peter Clifton and Cody, I'm sorry. I blank on your last name. What's your last name?
Northcutt.
Northcutt, okay. Yeah. Peter and Cody are from the Ready Room and from Ritual. First of all, Ritual is... I'm just going to go ahead and say probably the hottest restaurant in Houston. If it's not, it's certainly damn close. And when I say hottest, just means,
their AC works.
Hard to get a table.
Yeah.
Hard to get a table. All of that kind of stuff. No, it's not that hard to
but
get a
worth
table.
The wait.
But worth the wait. And the food. I mean, they've been written up, numerous times and have been praised. And certainly everything that I've seen, the food is good. The drink selection is great. The cocktails are terrific. And then basically across the parking lot, they've now opened the Ready Room, which is. And I want you, Peter, to describe what is the style of the Ready Room, because it strikes me as almost like an old school honky tonk, but I don't mean that in the sort of country western dancing sort of way. It just strikes me as an old style saloon, maybe.
To me, it's
intent?
a funky jazz pub that you could walk into, something that you would see in New York or Philadelphia.
All right, that totally works
Chicago,
better. Yeah, that totally works better, because it's so old school in terms of its vibe and the look of the place and all of that. It's not, one of those ultra-modern New York bar type.
No, we get a lot of
vibe.
complaints that our walls are too bare, so we need to add pictures. So.
How long has Ready Room been open?
Ready Room's been open for about, 9-10 weeks?
Yeah,
almost 3 months.
So it's essentially brand new. And the focus of Ready Room, is it on cocktails specifically? I mean, I know obviously you can get good beer there and you can get straight spirits, but it's really was sort of built as a cocktail place, wasn't it?
It is. I looked at my report, and ironically, half of our sales is all about classic cocktails. Half of it is for our signature cocktails. So we're built just about to do anything that you want to do, whether it's whiskey neat, whether it's beer in a glass, or whether it's wine in a glass, or whether it's a cocktail.
So we know that wine and craft beer are going through, bits of a resurgence right now. Mm-hmm. Certainly spirits are going through a resurgence. Is the same thing true with cocktails? Is this a sort of a growth time for the cocktail end of the business?
I feel like they always will be growing. I mean, they had a really big stride a couple of years back with the whole cocktail renaissance. Now everyone wants that classic. Everyone wants that signature. What are you doing? What tincture are you making style?
Right. See, I remember for me, some of my first exposure to that was like when Anvil opened on Westheimer, and you would go over there and look at the menu and you go, I have no idea. You just point to something and they would make it, and then you decide how much you liked it. But you guys are kind of in that vein, although I don't think you have 8 gazillion cocktails, but you have some definite interesting things that people might not have seen on a cocktail menu before. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. We do have 100%. Our signatures that we put a lot of thought into. Yeah.
So how do you go about creating a signature cocktail? Do you start by saying, okay, let's take a sort of a basic cocktail that everybody knows and work up an interesting variation? or is it a start from scratch thing?
I think there's two answers, but I'll let you start first.
Yeah, well, thank you. I don't know how Peter does it, but me, with our whole concept, and we really tried to hone in on Houston as a whole, as a culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I like to do is find out little tidbits about the different wards and what kind of cocktail I'm making for that ward. Like I have one called the El Dorado Ballroom, called Dorado.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to take a little bit of that as inspiration and kind of see how I can fit in flavors to that culture of that ward and what kind of makes sense to that kind of event or that location. That's how my inspiration is.
When I was in the ready room, I noticed that's kind of how you have your cocktails divided in the menu is by ward. So Houston is from the sort of like Louisiana, East Texas vibe, where things in the city are referred to as wards. I don't know if that's true everywhere. Is that true?
No, Louisiana's parishes.
Yeah, you're right.
parishes,
Louisiana's
yeah.
parishes. Yeah. But I know, like in New Orleans, though, they'll refer to things as wards as well, I think. But anyway, the point is that there's a distinct Houston feel to the cocktail menu, and that's sort of the start of it. How do you decide what cocktail matches what like part of town, what ward?
Oh, well, that is just the culture of it all.
Yeah.
We delved back, and me and Pete have stayed up countless nights just looking at it all. Like Fifth Ward, for example, back in its heyday was mostly Creole. So from right there, you can get African American, you can get French, you can get Spanish. That right there is a whole culmination of different flavors and styles that you can play with.
One of the things people who live elsewhere don't know about Houston is how diverse the city really is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and how many different cultures have sort of melded in this one place to create a pretty unique city. So that would be interesting. Translating that to a cocktail, though, it's like, is it certain spirits that you think represent that, or certain flavors that represent a
Absolutely.
particular ethnic group or part of the city, or how is that? I don't know. I guess
Probably
I'm
culture group
Yeah, I'm
rather
just
than
fascinated
ethnic
by
group.
it. Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
think
right,
one of
right.
the best representations of that is your Schreimsfield, actually.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to talk about that, but it's a very German-inspired kind of feel with tequila, which,
You don't think of Germany as
as
tequila.
tequila.
Yeah,
No,
right.
you think of like brandy and beer and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tequila, dry vermouth, Benedictine. I do a mushroom tarragon syrup. And,
mushroom tarragon.
and
Of
a
course you
carrot
do.
eau de vie.
I've got a bottle of mushroom tarragon syrup in the bar
And-
at home. No, I
Just
don't.
hanging out.
But no, really, that inspiration came from a cocktail I competed with and kind of evolved over time. But it's just it's the way it's written in the menu. Schreimsfield #1, and I have another cocktail called Alacran #4. So it starts from German to Hispanic, because that was the evolution of Second Ward. The Germans took over, established Second Ward, and then the Latins kind of moved in, and they didn't get along, and so the Germans moved out. So when you look at the menu, it's all about flavor. It's all about menu placement. It tells a story. So that way you understand it.
That's so fascinating. Now, you mentioned competition. Have you been a part of, both of you guys been
We have,
a part of
yeah.
cocktail competitions? And how do you get selected for that, or do you enter?
Just depends on the actual
On the
brand.
competition, yeah. Well, I did one for Bacardi last year, and it was their legacy one, and then I submitted a cocktail, and I was chosen. So I guess that's how that worked out.
Okay,
but,
interesting.
Yeah, I know
Yes.
you did Heaven Hill.
I did Heaven
Yeah.
Hills. and-
So in these cases, you come up with a cocktail using their products, and you let them know what it is.
No, they give you guidelines. You
Oh,
have
they
to
give you
follow
guidelines.
certain
I see.
rules.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, very interesting. So then, when there's a contest, is there an actual physical contest? You get together and make things, and judges drink them and judge, or is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Very
so-
nerve-wracking.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say it's like band recital, except for guys that are making drinks, right?
Yeah.
That is really cool. But I can see what that would be, because you've made it, you've poured it. You're watching their faces. It's like one of those, cooking shows on TV or something. You're,
Which hopefully you're hoping you're the sixth one in line, because
Yeah.
by then the judges had a couple already.
Yeah.
You're thinking I can slide by.
I love it. Well, speaking of have a couple, let's have one right now. What do we want to sample?
I think we should start off with something that's called.
Looking for the sun.
No, let's do the Latour,
Eiffel.
the Eiffel.
Gotcha.
All right, now the cocktails that you guys have prepared for today's show, are these cocktails that are on your menu that are available, or are they newer things you're working or experimenting with? What did
Cody
you decide to
and I,
bring?
we like to get together at the Cigar Lounge in the Heights on 19th Street. And so we're in the process of making our new menu.
Mm-hmm.
And so him and I kind of brainstormed. He has different perspectives on certain things, and so do I. And my take is that a lot of people want to have many different types of drink they're not aware of. They really do.
Right.
They just don't know them.
They don't know what to order. Yeah.
Right, and there's a way to convey that message by putting other cocktails on there to kind of lure them in a bit and say, hey, if you like a Sazerac, you'll like this.
Right.
And this is one of the prime example of that. So
now you are warming something up in a cup in your hand, right? That is.
No, I'm just rinsing the cup with absinthe.
Oh, okay.
So we don't want to have too much of that.
Again, that's what I do at home. I rinse my plastic cups out with absinthe.
Hey, plastic's a very porous material. It'll stick in. But this is something that we want to do on Wednesdays called Wormwood Wednesdays. So Wormwood Wednesdays focus on absinthe.
Right, because
Cocktails
that
with
is
absinthe.
wormwood.
I
is
have
the,
like half a bottle of Malort you can use.
We got bottles.
We'd probably be served more Malort than any other bar in the city.
Do you really? You actually have it? Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Do you
hilarious.
have Malort cocktails?
I'm working on one, and I think I'm gonna call it "So You Want to Fight Your Dad."
Yeah,
That's
that's so good. That's so perfect. I love it. I love it.
All right, so here's a little taste of that.
All right, so this is. Tell me again what the name of this
So
is.
this is Latour Eiffel. So
Okay.
basically, it's it's Gary Reagan's impression of a Sazerac if it were made in France.
Yep.
So you have an XO cognac, you have Cointreau, and you have a French liqueur called Suze.
Mm-hmm.
So and then your glass is rinsed with absinthe.
And you can still taste that wormwood right through everything.
Yeah, I was going to say when you say the glass is rinsed, is that like a cocktail way of saying how little of it there actually is in here, or is
that
that,
just- you
or
actually-
is
it's
it
a
really
literal-
about the process?
Yeah, you just literally rinse the glass with it, so you get
Yeah.
a nice coat on
So
there.
you put a little bit. It sort of coats the side of the glass.
Absolutely.
And then because I will say, Ian's right. The wormwood comes
It cuts
ringing
through.
right through.
The
You
anise
get that.
flavors cut through as well.
It's probably the dominant flavor, but then you sort of taste the other.
Now, what else
things.
did you say was in here?
XO cognac, Cointreau, and
Suze.
Suze.
I don't know the last one.
So Suze is an aperitif, a French aperitif. A little bit lighter, a little bit focuses more on some gentian roots and some other ingredients. So it
You
dries
know-
it out, pops it out.
This is not your little sister's cocktail.
No.
This is not something that is fruity or sweet, or you would serve at the summer beach party. It's not. This is a serious cocktail, and it's really really delicious.
the interesting
The ant
thing-
with the double bingo cards. That's
Yes,
that one.
yes, you're so right.
The interesting thing about it, the interesting thing about this is I love trying new things, and this one makes me have to think about it. Like,
Yes.
I don't instantly love it, but I like it. It's interesting, and I keep wanting to
You keep wanting to go
find more
back and
things
find
in
more.
it. So
Yes.
it's incredibly interesting. It makes me want to keep coming back to it.
Well, and I will say I totally understand what you're saying, because I like, I've had about my fifth sip of it now, and with each one I like it more. The first one you're getting used to those flavors on your palate. You're
yeah,
like,
the
oh,
first one's always a little shocker.
I don't know, wormwood. I don't know, and because I'm not a sort of a licorice flavor guy by nature, so I don't gravitate towards that kind of taste. But then when you taste what's going on in here, complexity. I mean, this is the cigar. This is the cocktail equivalent of like an AJ Fernandez cigar blend, because there's so much going on here. It's so complex.
And the more you sip it, the more it kind of develops too. It's
You try something on your
interesting.
cocktail. Give that a try.
All right. So I'm not sure what you just did. That was a
Just
was
put
it
a little
lemon?
bit of a lemon peel to
Okay.
it.
Oh, a little lemon peel. Okay. And see, now, just on the nose, I'm getting that sort of lemon zest. So,
It's amazing what a little oil will do.
wow. I have to be honest with you, that really changed it in a way that I think makes it
Okay, so
a little, even maybe a little more drinkable. Like
so funny enough, if you handed that to me like that first, I probably would have instantly liked this, but not found it as interesting. So it's fun to actually go through that experience of try it this way and then try it this way.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
you have a complicated cocktail when you have to tend to it about midway through the person drinking
Yes.
it. Right? It's
That's awesome, though,
It's like
because
you deliver it to their to the bar or to their table, and you go, "I'll be back in 2.5 minutes."
Yeah. Don't drink that too quick. I'm
Yeah.
watching
well,
you.
what's fun about this is even less of I'm just having a drink versus this is an experience because
It
you
is.
actually go through like a whole bunch of things flavor-wise on this. This is more like sitting down for a 4-course meal versus I'm grabbing a burger, you know?
Well, and, it's very much in keeping with the style of the food at Ritual, which is, the sort of the parent restaurant, I guess, of the Ready Room. It's all stuff on the menu that you recognize, but it's all just a little more complex in the way that it's put together and what the ingredients are and what's mixed together than maybe that food that you've ordered a similar thing somewhere else. If you order the pork carnitas, they're going to be fixed in a little bit different way, in a little more complex way than you ordered them perhaps the last place you got them.
You've asked a question about how do you approach cocktails? How do you make cocktails? It's kind of hard to be original. It's like French cooking. Everything's a derivative of French cooking.
It's all been done, right?
So my thought process is, let's go back to when everything was done right. Let's go back to when everything was an inspiration and learn from that. Create that backbone. Then that's going to help you really kind of branch out a little bit more and be a little bit more unique. So that's the route that we're taking with the new menu.
Which I think was also the theme of the animated film Ratatouille, if I don't...
there you have it.
Yeah, so...
I like it.
Yeah, makes sense. No, this is honestly, this is one of the more complex and interesting cocktails that I've ever had. And it's so interesting to me that, trying it in this sort of, like, place where I haven't had another cocktail, no one else around me is going, oh, here, try this. Like, it's just focusing on this, and it's so interesting, and I'm finding that I really like it more and more with every sip, and that's important.
I think this would go well with a cigar.
Yeah,
I found that out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say, you've done your
one.
research, sir, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Research finished.
All right, so I want us to taste an Oktoberfest because it is that time of the year, and so we've been trying to do an Oktoberfest on every show. So we're going to do that when we come back for the next segment, and we'll also do another cocktail. Guys, what will we be tasting next, cocktail-wise?
Next, we'll be tasting The Sun Also Rises, one of the Jim Meehan originals out of New York.
And that is a great title. Such a great name. The Sun Also Rises. So
Hemingway.
All right. Well, yes, absolutely. We'll get to the. Who was it? That Dave Attell, the comedian, he has that great line where he says, "All of the great writers were alcoholics. Hemingway, that other guy." We'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 105. Yeah, Brooks always loved it. He goes, Hemingway, that other guy.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, I don't know if he's even still out doing stuff.
He was hilarious for his
Welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. It is show number 105, The Cocktail Show, with Peter and Cody from the Ready Room.
Crazy.
Gentlemen, oh, yes. I've been looking forward to the show for a long time, actually. And honestly, we do not spend enough time talking cocktails because they're, as much as we love, spirits and crap, there's such an art on the consumer side to the cocktail. I mean, you can certainly go to the Ready Room and you guys can prepare us a fantastic cocktail. But there's also the challenge of how do you make these or something, passable, at least at home, that doesn't really exist. I mean, I know some guys do home brewing and stuff, but for the most part, the average consumer doesn't. But the average consumer probably does try to whip up a cocktail here or there. And if all you can make is a screwdriver and, like me, a dirty martini, you're somewhat limited. So I love the idea of hearing you guys talk about these cocktails, trying them out, and then trying to figure out, okay, I don't know if I can make that, but what can I make? What's right within my realm? My realm, exactly. So I just figured this is so interesting to most people, and that's why I think we should do more on the show with cocktails because.
Well, I found if I just take a shot of whatever I'm mixing before I make my drink, it always tastes a little better, especially by the third or fourth one.
It does.
Well, you would have.
I'm the worst at this. Sorry, I really do respect and love what you guys do. I love mixed drinks when they're not made by me.
Yeah.
Well, you realize that's how the Dutch won the 80-year war.
Is it?
Just drank a lot of gin and they won it.
Yeah, so called it Dutch courage.
Dutch courage, I love it. I always thought, that reminds me of the old saying, my God invented whiskey, was so the Irish wouldn't take over the world.
Right.
That's an old line, but very.
I'm so bad at it. My brew club puts on a party every year called the lounge formal.
The lounge formal?
And we all have
Is
to
it
take...
a cocktail party, or?
Well, yeah, we have cocktails. We have all kinds of stuff. We all have to take turns bartending at some point in time in the evening.
Yes.
And I usually last about 3 minutes before someone comes along and goes, no, you go over there and deal with music or something.
Do you just Bill
I'm
Murray
just
them?
so bad
Just
at
hand them shots of tequila?
That's pretty much it.
So every year, as soon as we hit sort of mid-August and the Oktoberfest beers begin to come out, we start trying to have at least one Oktoberfest on every show. And for today's show, I brought in a Marzen Lager Oktoberfest that is from Left Hand Brewing. I love Left Hand Brewing. This is one of those breweries that always seems to get it right. This is described as having toasty malt flavors dominating up front and noble hops leading to a spicy and superbly clean lager finish. It is a 6.6, which actually is,
That's a little higher than most.
A little higher than most Oktoberfest. And it is also very interesting on the nose. And I see you guys, it's so great to me when I see guys who are not on the show, at least as beer guys, who come in and who sample their beers and do the whole nose thing the way you guys are doing. So I guess that's... do you do that with cocktails, by the way?
Absolutely. I can appreciate juice of all kinds.
I know we do straight spirits, but yes, yeah. That's good. So as we sample this, I will ask you, when you're putting together your beer list, or do you have taps in the ready room?
We don't. It's all canned beer.
It's all canned beer. So, so how important is in a bar that's going to be very cocktail forward? How important is your curation of the beer list?
I mean, your beer list consists of maybe 5-10% of total sales. So you want to obviously pick something that all guys can gravitate towards. For us, it's Miller High Life, and people love that. But
champagne and beers.
And then you add on stuff like another necessary evil like Buffalo Bayou 1836 Copper Ale. People Texas love drinking.
By the way, that's a brilliant beer.
It is a brilliant beer.
So
I love that.
It's so you pick and choose, and then you're able to have two beers that you just kind of experiment with, like that we did the Avery what's it, Bug Zapper?
Bug Zapper, the ghost.
Yeah, like a German ghost, so you can play around with some of that.
Ian, you just sent an empty
I think you short poured me
back to me. Did I short pour you, or did you really enjoy it that much?
I'm going with short poured me.
Okay. So tell me about your thoughts about this. This is the Left Hand Oktoberfest Marzen Style Ale.
After minimal deliberation, I'm for it.
Yeah.
This is delicious. It's interesting
really
because the spices it's got a little bit of sweet, almost baking spices on the tail end of it, just past the hops. It's really interesting because, after you breathe after that first sip, it really comes up as a nice fall flavors kind of idea.
I agree.
And you know me, I love malty beers. I also love how they balance the hops in this. One of my favorite Oktoberfest ever, and I try to drink them out of it every year, is St. Arnold's. I just think it's brilliant.
We use that as our sort of baseline for
brilliant.
Oktoberfest.
But what it isn't is it's not hoppy at all. This has a hoppiness to it, but a balance to that hoppy that really does. It goes malt, hop, spice, done. It's really interesting. Well-crafted beer.
Yeah, I thought the Oktoberfest that we tried on last week's show, and I think we may have tried that before you came back in because you were only in for the last segment of the show. But I thought the Oktoberfest we tried on last week's show was a really good Marzen, but it didn't have those sort of fall flavors to it. And that's one thing I love about the St. Arnold Oktoberfest is it definitely embodies those fall flavors. I would put this one almost right in between the two. Like it's
Which one was it last week? Because I think I did miss that one. Do you
last week was the it was one from Seguin. It was
Seguin.
from Seguin Brewing Company. Yes, and
I remember watching you taste it.
It was very good. I mean, we really enjoyed it. But it was, it was definitely did not have the whole baking spices sort of vibe to it the way that the St. Arnold does. It was much more a traditional Marzen flavor. This one I would put right in the middle of the two.
This one is funny, too, because it doesn't have a lot on the nose going on.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't present. I'm sorry, go ahead.
It doesn't. I mean, what I would like to do, if you have one here, we can pour it in the boot and I can chug it.
Keeping it traditional, I got you.
Yeah, this is actually very easy drink. It's very dry, very chalky on the back end of it. But I get where you're getting from. The hop is there, but it's not there. I like it.
Yeah, the hop adds that nice bitter snap to the very end, and then it goes into bacon spice. It's almost like they timed it.
I dig it. Yeah, I like it. So let's transition to cocktail here and go to what our next feature cocktail is going to be. And again, this is also going to be a cocktail that is available at the Ready Room, right? Because the first one that we tried is definitely available.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be available on our next menu, which we're going to release at the beginning of October.
Are you hand mixing every cocktail, or are you going to have some on tap? Is there going to be?
No, I have nothing on tap. See,
Okay.
for
You
Ready Room,
mentioned that on beer. I didn't know.
right? But I think for Ready Room, I think most bars you go to, you can get a chartreuse on tap, or you can get something cool on tap, which I like. It's a cool idea. Mm-hmm. But for us, I don't know, if it's just something about the history of cocktails and bartending, it's very nostalgic.
Well, there's the handcrafted vibe that's always nice too.
And
When you order something and they make it.
Yeah, your place is just steeped in history from the way that the menus are put together to the look of the place, the walls, do you still have that really old school piano in the corner?
We do.
Still there.
I love that
Still
thing.
there, yeah.
so cool.
that handcrafted thing makes a difference. The best, I'm talking about this years later, the best margarita I've ever had in my life was from a guy at this bar, a random bar south on I-45. We ended up going there for some show and meet some friends. And my wife asked for a margarita, and he goes, okay, what kind of margarita do you want? She goes, I don't know, something good. And he goes, I got you. And then he walks off, and he's gone.
That's an answer.
Then he comes back.
Yep.
Then he comes back a little while later with a handful of limes and starts squeezing them. And he made this entire thing right from fresh.
Totally
It was the
from
best
scratch,
one I've ever had.
Yeah.
And literally just made the entire mix and everything right there in front of us. I've never had one like that. It was amazing.
It's that was always one of the things when the cocktail resurgence of a few years back really happened. That was one of the things that was focused, that I found as a part of the focus of it, which was every single ingredient put into it, if you went to a place that was really good, was very fresh and was very, it was the
Absolutely.
original
Right.
ingredient, not anything that you could buy that was, mixed or
Kool-Aid pouches.
pre-prepared,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I'll admit to, sometimes using the margarita mix, if you find a good one, it's not that bad. But there's really nothing quite like squeezing the limes yourself and doing all of it. But there you have to know what you're doing. You have to get that balance right. Because Nina's will do it for you, or you can figure out how to do it yourself.
I mean, it really depends on how geeky you get into it. Some people look at pH balance, some people look at sugar balance, some people look at how long has it been squeezed.
Brick levels.
The average consumer doesn't really know.
Did you squeeze
Right,
it by
so-
hand, or did you do one of the little
Absolutely.
thing? Yeah, right.
That's a big
exactly,
deal too.
yeah.
Most people don't really know that. But when you take the time to educate them and you give that show, they go, aha,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And it becomes more of a fun experience. So
Is it? Has it become sexy to be a cocktail nerd? I mean, is that like a
I don't
a cool
know,
thing?
man.
Like, because,
Is that a thing?
well, here's the thing. I for a long time, like if you were like a comic book nerd, it was like the least
thing.
sexy thing ever.
Bazinga.
But then it kind of became, all these comic book movies became like, big box office and all that, and it kind of became a little cool to be the Comic-Con guy. You know what I mean?
Still
To be
is.
the Walking
I have
Dead
no idea.
guy.
I have
Are
no
you saying
idea
they're going to
what's
remake
Yeah.
Cocktail?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe it should be discussed. Yes.
Well, I
No,
think
I
it
mean-
is. I had a guy the other day was sitting at the bar, and I was making a Hemingway daiquiri.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the middle of nowhere, he goes, "Oh, you're making a Hemingway."
Okay.
And you're like,
Okay.
what?
Sure.
He knew just from the ingredients.
He knew exactly
was
what I
saying
was
you put
pouring,
in.
yeah.
That is so interesting. So speaking of Hemingway, the
So
sun
we have
also rises.
Absolutely, we have something called The Sun Also Rises. This is a Jim Meehan. Jim Meehan owns PDT in New York. Also wrote a couple bartending manuals. That one of them just recently came out
Yeah,
that we like.
the bartender manual, actually.
And so this is basically you got Banks 5 rum on this one. You got maraschino. You got grapefruit, a little bit of lime juice, and also a touch of absinthe. So
It's interesting how much of that I can detect on the nose. Like as you were, I was smelling it as you were listing all of those. I'm like, yes, yeah, oh
Yep.
yeah, yes.
I might be
yes.
a little nuts, but the culmination of all that almost smells a little lavender. Is that?
I could see
it's
that.
really floral to me. Maybe that's just.
I think you're getting that from the absinthe.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I can. It's a top layer.
I will say this is one that the nose is very
It's on
different.
the retro hail big time.
The
It's
nose
floral.
is very different from what it does on the tongue. And the
No,
nose-
I think the tongue is exactly what he's describing. It becomes floral.
Yes, I think you may be right. But I get some of that grapefruit more
from the
more
nose?
intensely. Well, I was going to say more intensely, like in the middle of the tongue, than I did even on the nose. Maybe again, maybe this is me.
I do love grapefruit though, so this one appeals to me right off the bat. I love that grapefruit sour. You didn't put. There's not a lot of sweet. Like there's just enough sweet to make it not feel like it's
tart.
Yeah, it's not like it's super tart or make your face pucker, but it's still it retains enough of that grapefruit to where you really get that grapefruit sour finish that's really nice.
If I order this at the Ready Room, what kind of a glass is this served in? Is this a tall glass with crushed ice?
No, that would be the way this should be served should be a coupe with crushed ice inside of it.
Okay. And is that something that you is that? I guess what I'm asking is there a science? Is there a science to that, or is it more art? The right glass with the right cocktail.
I think it's a combination of both because you want to express the cocktail in a certain way because presentation is key. People do eat with their eyes. And at the same token, there is a little bit of a science because if you have such a floral cocktail, you want it to smell it. So if you use this wide open space, the aroma is going to go everywhere.
Right.
So it's a combination.
It's always interesting to me to see what glass the cocktail arrives in after you've read the ingredients and ordered it off of the menu, especially if it's something you haven't had before.
Well, unless you're going tiki, then you just find like a stormtrooper helmet and you throw it in there.
Yeah. You know? I love tiki drinks. I really do.
There's a bar in Portland, Oregon, where you get your cocktail in an old Nintendo cartridge.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. See, I'm enough of a geek to really think that's cool. That's just awesome.
And they also had a stormtrooper helmet too.
They did. I stole it.
What did you say, Ian?
I said I'm surrounded by nerds.
It's coming back.
I think that this could almost qualify as a tiki-style drink. It's got just enough of that tropicality to it, maybe.
Well, it is a Hemingway riff.
Right.
So it is a Hemingway. The only thing you're doing is
the old man
swapping.
in the sea.
Yeah.
Have you tried this, in fact, with the Fuente Hemingway series cigar?
I have not, but I would love to do that with you.
We're gonna
Next Wednesday.
Maybe we get off the show. We can do that.
That's a date, gentlemen. That is a date. All right, we're going to take
a mandate.
Yeah, it's a mandate.
That's a double entendre as well.
All right, not that there's anything wrong with that. Okay, we will be right back for the next segment of the show, another cocktail, and then I'm going to be breaking out this beer from Eureka Heights, Ian, and I'm so excited for you to see the can on this beer.
I can't wait to see the can.
And of course, you and I both love Eureka Heights. The guys are just terrific, and their beer is fantastic. And so we will be tasting the Mini Boss IPA, plus more cocktails with Peter and Cody from the Ready Room as we continue with Smoking a Toast to number 105.
Awesome.
I love the signature on that, the 105.
I really like this.
As long as
cocktail
we've
very
had
much.
these,
I like
don't
this
pack
a
much.
lot. Yeah.
That's a good one.
It's just so drinkable. Welcome back to Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 105. I love the sound bites from in between the segments. Ian, I believe, just said, when that came out, you were a teenage boy that played guitar, and Lita Ford was awesome. That was the sound bite from in between the segments. If you're watching on Facebook, you get to.
I didn't really
see
buy
that.
an album, but I sure had a poster.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I get it. I totally get it. It's by the way, you can not only catch the show on Facebook in terms of the video, but you can also see it on YouTube. We have our YouTube channel there as well, so you can check that out. We want to remind you about the Whiskey Sniff. Tickets are on sale now. Go to eventbrite.com and search Whiskey Sniff. The tickets are, I think, very reasonable based on what is going to be available at the Sniff. The food from B&B. Let's put it this way: if you went to B&B and had the food and the whiskey and the cigars that you're gonna like, it would cost you much more.
One of the fun things to do with the Whiskey Sniff is when you go and you select your first whiskey, you just smell the whiskey and this one matches and you go with it, right?
Of course, yeah.
If you get a short pour. Which I do at my house all the time. I do that because I'll drink that whiskey and smoke my cigar. When I'm done with the whiskey, I'll go in and I'll try something else. Now if you're pouring big, it's a little hard to do that.
Sure.
But if you pour a little short, you can try 3 or 4 different whiskeys. And what's funny is because now you have the whiskey on your palate and the cigar on your palate, it keeps evolving. Every time you go back in and smell another one, you have more flavors that you're picking up and more flavors that you think will match. It's really interesting the way it works.
And it's then sometimes adding water changes everything.
Adding water will change the flavor of the whiskey you're doing.
So it's there's so many different ways. Well, that's what's going to be unique and awesome about the sniff is that once you get that cigar lit, you can try your pairing, but if you also want to do short pours, you can try several pairings.
Right.
So it'll be something I think it'll be really, really fun and interesting as the evening
So this
progresses.
is something like as geeky as you talked about being geeky. Okay, I'm geeky sometimes, but I'm geeky about really cool things.
Yeah, that's what
like
you always
whiskey.
say. Yes. Yeah.
So what I
he always says that. He goes, "Yeah, I'm a nerd, but I'm a nerd about stuff that's really cool."
So if I'm doing that and I want to explore more whiskeys, I love Sonic Ice. It's the little tiny ice balls, right? The little tiny ones.
Pebble ice.
Right. So you just grab a few of those in a glass and you short pour, and you get to take the whole ride with the whiskey. Like I like to try it neat. I like to try it cold, and I like to try it as it waters out a little bit and
So
try
you
it through
basically get
different
all
amounts
three
of
of those
water.
things.
Right.
Yeah,
so you get this whole, like we talked about, an experience rather than I'm just slamming some whiskey.
Totally.
Time and place for that, I guess, but I like to go through that whole experience. And if you pour small half-ounce pours and you do this, then with one cigar, you can enjoy, if you've got a cigar that lasts for an hour or even 45 minutes, you can enjoy 3 or 4 whiskeys in a place where you would have poured like one big one or something like that.
So you can be that guy at the whiskey sniff that's going just a little.
Right.
Right, because you're going to be trying more than...
Yeah, and the whole secret is to look at how many different ones you can try.
Right, of course. And trust
Ulterior
me,
motives.
with the lineup, and that lineup that I gave you, that's only a fraction of what's going to be there.
So
it's
cool.
going to be used. And we're going to have a table that for people who are not as big a whiskey fans, we're going to have a table that has rum selections, cognac selections, tequila. We're going to have the Patron Añejo tequila, which we sampled on the 100th show. That tequila was fantastic.
And then we'll have the other table, which will just have a bottle of Malort.
Yes. And
Or
Ian
Basque.
At the end.
Because that's the better version.
and
You're gonna find me
Ian
there.
and Ian sitting there sadly. That's what the table will look like. All right, Ian.
Look, no, don't smell this. Just try it.
I think the second brewery we ever had on the show was Eureka Heights. The second brewery we had represented on the show that brought their
quite possible.
stuff in to sample for us. At the time, the guys were very enthusiastic, and they brought these
And they
growlers
just
in.
hired
Yeah.
Brent Davis, their brand ambassador.
Yes.
And so my friend Joel told Brent, he goes, so you're going to go on this show, and you're going to hang out with these guys, and you may smoke cigars and drink beer. And he goes, you mean that's my job?
You've just been hired? That's awesome.
Yeah, tall gentleman thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we loved their beer then. We've loved it every time we've been able to sample it now. And I was so excited to walk into Specs on Tuesday and find in the cooler, there gathered with all of the other Texas beers, a couple of selections from Eureka Heights.
You still haven't showed me this
No, I
can.
haven't.
You have artfully kept it.
They had
Got a
the,
sneak peek. You're gonna like it.
they had the Buckle Bunny, which was of course the
GABF gold medal winner for them.
Yes,
right.
and that's probably going to be their bestseller. That's
Now-
going to be their Shiner Bock, if you will. It's going to be their one that sells.
It's
the
also
best.
funny, too, because do you know what a buckle bunny is?
Yes.
That's the girls that hang out at the rodeo.
Right.
Like for rock stars, we called them
Groupies.
groupies.
Yeah, thank you. But they're called Buckle Bunnies.
Buckle
at
bunnies.
Rodeo. Okay. So now we know that. Well, I'm going to unveil you this. This is an IPA. You've had it before. Well, we've had the Boss. Have we had the Mini Boss?
I don't know if we've had the mini boss. I've tasted this. This to me tastes like IPA tangerine wonderfulness.
Well, it's a very fruit forward IPA, but I love the Mini Boss packaging so much. It's now
Tangerine.
my favorite beer can. As you can see, it's got the old 8-bit or 16-bit Boss there with the Mini Boss beside him. But then here's the thing that makes it brilliant. Are you ready for this? The inscription below it says, all your hop are belong to us. When I saw that, I was like, this is my new favorite beer.
Good going, guys. Good going, guys.
And, if...
Let me see that. I'm going to put that on the camera so everyone can see
I won't go through explaining what it is for anybody that doesn't understand, but if you don't understand, just Google all your base or belong to us, and then you'll know what this is all about. Yeah. But that's one of the greatest memes of all time on the internet. Like,
absolutely.
One of the great, and I just thought it was so brilliant that they managed all your hopper.
There's a brewery, not a brewery, a brewery supply place on the north side of town over off of Shepherd, and I walked in and they have a shirt that says all your beer are belong to us, and it's the big monster taking over the beer.
Well, I just thought this was perfect. Yeah,
the microbreweries is pretty funny.
Thought it was perfect.
We've had the mini boss on at Ritual for a year.
Right,
about 8.
Excuse me. It's a really good IPA.
This is a really light drinking IPA. It's actually a little hoppier than I generally like an IPA, but it has that tangerine kind of sweetness right up front.
And it really kind of offsets
it to me and makes this a very drinkable IPA. And as much as IPAs like this, I generally go, I kind of like this one.
Yeah, and this is right up my alley. This is my kind of
That being said, they also make their Wicked Awesome ESB, and I will drink much of that. I love it. They're one of the few people that even make an ESB, and they make a brilliant one,
Well, so far what I saw in the cooler at Specs was the Mini Boss and the Buckle Bunny.
And that's what they're going to have for a while.
I'm assuming that's the original.
Yeah, that's what they're going to have for a while. They'll expand later, but I think their canning process is a little limited at the moment.
Yeah,
so they're
those guys. Yeah. So, Peter, it looks like you've already poured us our next cocktail. Is that correct?
I did, if you don't mind.
So, what are we going to be sampling here next?
Well, we got something exciting we're going to do on the new menu on Fridays. It's going to be an old-fashioned Fridays.
How often does the menu update? You mentioned this.
3
about
months.
Seasonally, every 3 months, but like traditional seasons, not like Texas seasons, because if we did Texas season, it'd be like a new menu for a whole week. And then we have to go back to the original.
It's spring. Okay, it's summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But we want to have some fun, so we're going to do old-fashioned Fridays. So Fridays, you'll have an old-fashioned with, I believe we chose, 9 different?
Yeah.
9 different spirits.
I've read that some people are crediting the resurgence of the old-fashioned to the TV show Mad Men.
Oh, I'm one of those.
So you believe that to be true then? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I believe it had an impact.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly, if nothing else, jumped on something that was already beginning to catch fire. Yeah, the old-fashioned, obviously, despite the name, I mean, this cocktail does go back a ways, correct?
It does.
Yeah.
It's very similar to the definition of a cocktail, which is spirit, sugar, water, bitter. So most people attribute it to whiskey. That's because that's an American, that's our spirit. Right. But it just says spirit. It doesn't say whiskey. So we're trying to show that you can do other old fashions. Now people have done rum old fashions, but we're trying to push the limits and go, well, let's try gin, let's try vodka, let's try Geneva, let's try all these other weird ones. Let's see if I can do it.
So this one is a
Geneva old fashioned.
Geneva old fashioned. So what does that mean?
So basically the recipe on this is Geneva or Geneva, depending on how you pronounce it. A little bit of cane sugar and 3 dashes of English syrup, and that's it.
And is that like the right bitters? Like, because I was buying some of that actually when I was in Specs this week, and I just saw all these other kinds and flavors and styles. Is that sort of the baseline bitters?
Angostura is one of the more staple ones that has been around. Also, Peychaud is another good one that's been around for a while. So if you're going more towards that old school classic style, then there's only a few that was out.
That's like an ingredient with a very expected flavor. You know exactly what's happening. Right.
Yeah. So this sounds like a very exciting cocktail. I'm very anxious to sample it based on how you've described it. And so you mentioned you pushed the envelope with this and made the old fashioned with all kinds of different liquors as the base liquor in the drink. Huh?
Absolutely. So this is Geneva. So it's a more malt based forward.
I love this.
You're still going to get like more of a floral aftertaste to it.
I'm looking at Ian. He is just a happy camper. Yes, but we have to remember he likes Malort.
So we'll do a Malort old fashioned just for you.
Yeah. I'm working on a drink called Malort and mayonnaise. Sounds delicious. Malortaise sounds delicious, doesn't it?
Could you get more Chicago than Malort and mayonnaise? I mean, to me, I'm
just trying to see if I can get these guys to gag a little bit.
Oh man,
no, we love Malort. It was funny. He came up to me last night. He had a good friend of his that showed up. He goes, "Hey man, he's never had Malort. Can I Malort him?"
Yeah. See, it's a verb.
I like that.
It's
I love
a
that.
verb now.
See, and I malorted him right here on the show.
Oh, it was, and I had never had it. It was brilliant. It was honestly. I've gone back. I've watched it. Like I'm like he totally got me. Like I was completely unprepared for what happened. And then there was that moment where, because you know how it is when you're trying something for the first time and somebody's watching you, and you don't want like. It's not like I wouldn't have said what I really thought, but there was that moment where I wasn't sure how uncool it would be to go, this is terrible. Like right after the first drink, you know? So I'm trying, it's almost like you can see the wheels turning in your own mind. You know, I was trying to find some kind of rationalization. Is there a way I can work around to liking this? And then
I just started laughing.
And then I saw him break into the laugh, and I was like, "Oh, okay, good. Pressure's off." No, dude, that's awful.
It's like old luggage. It's like, why is this here? But I still keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Malort is like the most extreme case of this milk is bad. Smell this.
Oh,
like this.
Totally.
Like why? That's human nature. You have to do.
I
this.
always say if there's a liquor that describes a wicked witch of the East, it would be that one right there.
It's does this look infected to you? That's the that's Malort. That's Malort.
Oh my gosh!
So
off of Malort for a minute. This really is delicious. This
It
is. Please roll down what you have in here again.
So it's
it
bowls, Jennifer, and then you have cane sugar, and then you have 3 dashes of Angostura, and that's it.
That's it.
Well, I did an orange express, so you take an orange peel.
Right,
okay,
right,
so
right.
yeah, I get a little of that in there too. Yes.
But to me, it reminds me of okay. So we talked about home brewing earlier in the show, or before the show, and what that reminds me of is when you open that mill, and you inhale
that.
all that malt and all that,
Right.
Yeah, it
and
smells
then
so good.
add a little bit of sugar to it.
Yeah.
Totally get what you're saying. Yeah. Totally get what you're saying. Your cocktails are, and again, I think about the different places that I've gone that have even been specialty cocktail places. Yours are just more unusual. Is that a good way to say it? They're just more unique. They're less. They're less perhaps what you would.
They're more
automatically-
intricate in the flavors.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I say that, because unusual just means, you could put a Band-Aid in it and say that's a
Nelly.
Yeah, whatever. But
That's a Nelly.
That's a good shot.
Thank you.
But you could say, hey, this is something we're putting in. But these cocktails make you think about it. It's like listening to jazz.
Yes.
Some people don't get it. Some people listen to jazz and goes, oh, it's so smooth and relaxing. You obviously don't hear what John Coltrane is doing there.
Right.
Okay?
Exactly. Yeah.
That
But
or
if
Jocko.
Right. If you know what's going on, this is so incredibly interesting and intricate. There's so many things happening. We've tried 3 of these now, and every one of them makes me come back. And even the first one, my knee-jerk reaction was, I don't know if I like that, but I still wanted to keep trying it because it's so interesting.
Right.
That to me is priceless.
And-
because, again, we're back to the experience thing. You're like, now
Right.
you have an experience, not just a drink.
And
Absolutely.
yeah, you've said it in such a great way, but I was just going to say, these are kind of like cocktails for big boys. Like this isn't your I like a sex on the beach or type of you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
or
that would be
exactly
for sure.
Exactly. Sex on the beach with
Malort
Malort
on the beach.
Oh,
God.
dude.
Called it
Malort
right
on the
beach.
beach.
Yeah.
How about that?
But what I will
But
say is that
these aren't kamikazes. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely,
Yeah,
and I tell people, we try to tell people, like last night we did Gypsy Jazz at Ready Room, and it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Is that?
This,
Yeah.
this lady had an amazing pair of pipes on her that just it was awesome. So when you have a cocktail like this and you have jazz, it just, creates
so
that
nice.
amazing, sexy feeling.
That is a cultural experience right there. That's what
Absolutely.
you're talking about. It really is. And the Ready Room is such a perfect venue for that because it just has that old school vibe to it and feel to it.
No, I haven't been there. Do you have a patio at the Ready Room?
We do.
Is there a place where you can smoke cigars and stuff?
Absolutely. We even have a whole cigar setup for you.
Ooh, I love that.
So we're actually working on something. I don't know how legal it is, but we're researching it. But
Are you
Keyword
Are
researching.
you working on being able to supply cigars?
absolutely, but
Fantastic.
you wouldn't pay for it. It'd be kind of like a Sunday night. Come over and check out a couple of drams at a really good price. But we're going to give you certain cigars that
Right.
pair up with it.
Part of the
Nice.
price of
That's
the,
very
yeah.
cool. All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but a little bird told me that when you guys were getting the room ready before it was open, to the public, before you were doing business there, that there was a big party inside where everybody smoked cigars because you wanted that to kind of infuse the walls a little bit.
Oh, we did do that.
Is that true?
Yeah, we did that with
41-year-old Alexander Murray.
1968 Alexander Murray.
Nice.
So the wall, the varnish on the wall still took over. But
If you're gonna save something for a special occasion, there you have it.
Yeah,
absolutely,
there you go.
absolutely.
All right, we're going to take a break. Be back for our final segment. I do have an Avery Brewing Vanilla Bean Stout that we could break out for this segment, or we could just do a final cocktail and call it a show. Ian, what are your thoughts?
Both.
We'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting.
Sorry, I had to stop and think about that one.
No, I still like the whole. What was it? What is it?
On the beach in Hawaii.
I will tell you that today's one of those days where it's really easy to say, I love my job.
Can't believe you guys make me do this.
Yeah, it's Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 105. It is the cocktail show with Cody and Peter from the Ready Room and Ritual. And we are brought to you, by the way, by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. That is where the Whiskey Sniff will take place, and it will be spectacular. It's on October the 10th. Get your tickets at eventbrite.com.
You know what they're going to do when we're there? They're going to pass around bacon.
Yes, they are. And that
Have
bacon.
you ever had bacon from B&B?
Their bacon appetizer that they.
Oh my God! It's just.
Have you ever had this?
It's otherworldly.
I'm
It makes
trying
me
not to-
squeal like a
this
pig.
thick.
So
I'm-
are you vegetarian?
I'm a vegan,
You're
actually.
a
I'm one of
vegan.
those
Gotcha.
millennial vegans, yeah.
Oh,
So-
gotcha.
So,
So I
you're,
take his and I go like.
But don't get me wrong, I've had bacon, so I'm trying not to
I was going to say
conform
bacon.
back.
I can just tell. It's like what it's
He's
like.
trying not to even enjoy talking about it.
It's
Right.
it's like trying to describe sex with a beautiful woman to a eunuch.
Yeah, I'm
you
thinking
know-
I'm thinking tofu.
Yeah.
thigh deep in tofu.
All right, we are back with the final segment here, and I asked in the last segment if Ian thought we should do the just the cocktail or the Avery Vanilla Bean Stout, and you were in favor of the Vanilla Bean Stout. So
I believe I said both. I was
You
in
did.
favor of.
You just say
Yes.
both.
I was in flavor of drinking actually.
apparently we've
favor
had,
of
we've
flavor.
What
had a
did
few-
you put in those drinks?
We've had a few flavors here. So I'm
Malort.
opening this one. I've actually had this for a while. It's part of the Avery Brewing Company's Botanicals and Barrels series, and it's described here. They show the vanilla flower in the illustration on this. I'll show this to the camera. But what I really love is they give the scientific name of it, which is Vanilla Plantifolio. I did not know that. It's
Well, if
described
I had
as-
called it that, you'd never know what I was talking about.
No, I'd have thought this is some Malort joke that you're making. It is described as stout with vanilla beans added and aged in bourbon barrels. I am a big fan when it comes to ice cream of vanilla bean. I think it is the finest of the flavors, as the Bare Naked Lady says. But it's an interesting addition to a stout. So I don't know how this is going to go over, and we are going to try it and see. So
Well,
I'm
you
gonna-
know, Breckenridge
I'm gonna
makes a
pour it
vanilla
fast.
porter that's pretty
do.
actually
Yeah, it's
oddly
good.
sweet, but
I've-
oddly amazing.
I've had that vanilla porter, and I do like it. So this will be a very interesting. This will be a very interesting try. So
Oh, there's no doubt there's vanilla in
yeah,
this.
I can actually smell it when I open the bottle. You know. And so it's really interesting that our engineer here in the building, John Whiteside, who is a huge fan of porters and stouts, actually we were talking about it last time. We had, I think, that Nitro Milk Stout from Firestone Walker, and he was just loving that. And he was saying, "I love anything stout, long as it's not a vanilla stout." He said. So then it made me start thinking, okay, maybe is there something like is there something uncool about vanilla?
Did you plan it?
stouts?
I didn't see him in his office.
No, I just thought he won't like this one. We usually, if we have a stout or a porter on the show, we usually try to save at least one drink for John. So have you done some research here, Ian? What do you got?
Just one research. Give me
Yeah?
a second. Let me do one more.
Yeah, all right. While you do that, I will.
This
Yeah,
has
vanilla on the
vanilla
nose.
bursting on it. Mm-hmm. It's got a lot of sweetness, almost that malty, thick sweetness. But then it goes into this burnt oak and caramel. That just
Wow.
really lay it right
So-
across the tongue.
I'm going to describe it this way. if you were to order a vanilla malt, but Dairy Queen, instead of putting it in the usual coated Dairy Queen cups, delivered it to you in sort of a charred wooden, glass of some sort, that's what this would taste like.
The aftertaste of this smells like somebody's grilling next door, and it's awesome.
Oh, yeah, it really is.
So nice. You know that smell where you're like, you walk into your back, you're like, somebody's got something on the grill.
Somebody's got something really good on the grill.
It's got such a smokiness to it, and that char flavor, that char has a lot to do with it.
Cody,
the vanilla goes away.
It's a HEB commercial when they're grilling.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Noted.
Yeah.
Hey, J.J. Watt's next door. Yeah. By the way, I noticed like the shortest running commercial of all time was the one that HEB did with Brock Osweiler when he was here for the Texans. Because he was like so dreadfully bad. I think it only ran for like 3 weeks, and then they pulled it, replaced it with an old J.J. Watt. But
with anything that has J.J. Watt.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So Cody, what do you make of this? I was appreciating some of your palate comments earlier. So.
Well, yeah, no, I think Avery as a whole is just a fantastic brewery. Yeah. I mean, not to jump ship a little bit, we have we have the Lilikoi in a cocktail that we do. Yeah, but this one in particular, it's great. I mean, you get the nice dark toffee, kind of dark cacao.
Toffee, good
but see,
one,
I've messed around with vanilla beans so much in syrups that I can kind of like pinpoint, like I can see the bean opening up and those hairs that are inside. Like I feel like I'm licking that. Which is fantastic. Yeah.
Why is vanilla?
That's oddly visual.
bean?
I'm gonna have to poke out my mind's eye after that. Thank you.
just subtle movements, though.
So why is something that's described as being vanilla bean as opposed to just vanilla? What's substantial about that? I think of ice creams. There's vanilla ice cream, and then there's vanilla bean
vanilla
ice cream.
bean, I feel, has more of an earthiness to it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? It's got that little bit of bitterness that you can confuse as like a dark cacao, or that's my palate. Like different strokes for different folks.
Yes,
you know,
it's a different flavor, but it has that sort of back of the palate similarity to like the cacao. Yeah.
But vanilla to me is just too sweet. Just a regular vanilla. It's always an extract or something like that.
Right.
Like he's saying, though, is you got a little bit of that terroir, a little bit of that earthiness that comes with the bean.
You get that same difference when you have coffee flavor and coffee bean flavor stuff too. I just wanted to point that out.
Totally agree.
Because you always get a little bit of bitterness with the bean flavor. Because I guess they roast the beans, you get that bitterness. This is just delicious.
I hate to say it, but what I would do is I would pair this up with some pistachio ice cream.
Oh, hell yeah.
Reduce down
yes.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And drink the beer, too. But reduce it down, put it on top of your pistachio ice cream, and it's an awesome night. Awesome night.
Well, you have to drink the rest because you only use so much on your ice cream.
Yeah. Well, you got to give the ladies some, and then you drink the rest, right?
That's right. Guys, we really want to express our thanks to you for coming on the show and helping up our game a little bit
thank you for having us.
the cocktail
Did we drink
area.
all their cocktails?
No, we have one left. We got one left.
And try it.
So before we tried it, I just want to make sure I thank them appropriately for
after we tried, I might forget stuff.
That's right.
Well, thank you for having us in the beers. I mean, I appreciate it.
Thank you. We had a lot of fun.
Thank you for sharing those with us. Quick question for you two guys. Since you're both huge, knowledgeable cocktail guys, and I asked this question of each of you independently. The perfect martini, is it made with vodka or gin?
I'm going to take a cop-out stance.
You should.
Perfect martini is one that puts a smile on your face.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Right. Well, if it's you
my
drinking,
martini.
Yeah, what are you ordering?
I am willing to drink gin on ice, by the way. Sorry.
It's okay. I'll drink it out of a bottle. But
I like that.
No, mine is about 2 ounces. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. 2 ounces of gin. I like a London Dry to 1 ounce of vermouth.
Right.
And then 2 dashes orange bitter, stirred, and then orange twist on it, and I'm good to go.
Okay.
For me, I'm a big fan of Ely Scotch. I always loved Ely Scotch. So my perfect martini is a burnt martini. So
so you get a little bit of that sort of peated burnt sort of,
and then put a little bit of a lemon twist onto that, and it's nice.
You had to one up me.
Well,
my brother turned me on a smoky martini years ago, so I'm assuming when you put more peat in it, that's a burnt martini.
Well, it's funny. I used to work over at Mashrafts back in 2011, 2012, and I became friends with a gentleman who was a sergeant for the British Royal Navy, and he taught deep sea diving. And him and I became good friends, and he told me, Ely Scotch is all about opening up the soul for dialogue. And so to me, that
love
fits
that.
perfectly
I
with a
love that.
martini. It
That's
opens
awesome,
that soul.
yeah.
You got that woman sitting next to you, or that woman sitting next to you, and it's just you got to open up. So I think it's perfect.
Awesome.
I love that. Well, one of the reasons I ask is we are, and this is going to be this will be after the whiskey sniff, but we are planning on doing a special show here that's going to be the Smoking a Toast and Martini Showdown. And what we're doing is we're bringing in one mixologist who is a true believer in the vodka martini.
Okay.
And one who is a true believer in the gin martini.
Okay.
And we're going to have them mix and go head to head. We'll have a panel that will taste and decide, and we'll, it certainly won't be the last word on the subject, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun getting to whatever that word is. So
Was that a
That sounds
cocktail
amazing.
pun? Last
yes,
word.
Yes,
I
it
got
was
you.
a cocktail pun. Thank you. See, you're good. You guys
we will
are-
spread the word and we'll support it for sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
fantastic. All right, so final cocktail here is going to be
The final cocktail here is called the Gold Coast.
Yep.
It's
Jim
a Jim Meehan vodka old
so this
fashioned.
is the second of his that you
Absolutely.
mentioned, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So interesting.
This is Carlton Gold potato vodka, a blend of 4 different potatoes. So delicate that you have to distill it within 4 hours after picking the potatoes.
Wow.
And it's
wow.
blended with Cronin Swedish Punch, which has a little bit of spice to it, and also got a black pepper tincture to it. So, with that being
Interesting.
said, I'm going to pass them around, and this would be a great nightcap to the show.
Interesting. Now, while you're
you
passing
can
this
smell
around,
that black pepper. That's so interesting.
while you're passing this around, I was going to ask about, like the aging and stuff of the spirits that you use. I'll give an example. I know there are some margaritas that are made with like an añejo tequila, but I've seen plenty that are made with a blanco or a reposado, and these are considered to be really premium martinis. How important is the aging of a spirit, whether it's whiskey or tequila or rum or whatever it is you're using, and how premium is sometimes the less, like a step down or two from the top shelf, better for a cocktail, or is top shelf always better?
In terms of tequila, I feel that blancos or reposados are more best suited for cocktails.
Because they're more agave forward.
Well, that and there's not as much complexity as well. If you do wood aging, they're easier to they can gather flavors better.
Okay.
You can showcase different flavors better.
He's right to a lot of an extent, but for me, it's reposado, and I equate this is that, Blanco is no barrel aging, reposado's up to 11 months, and añejo is from 12 to 24.
Right.
Or after, yeah.
So or extra añejo, what have you. To me, it's all about how you like your women. For me, I like a lot of character, I like a lot of sassiness, I like a lot of personality, and reposado does that for me.
Right.
Añejo to me is just too mellow.
It's a mellower vibe. Yeah.
So it's a personal preference, really.
I feel like sometimes though,
So you're saying
like with the
I'm
extra aging, you get a lot more subtle flavors, and sometimes when you use that for mixing, sometimes your mixers can just mask that, and it makes
Absolutely.
it makes it not worth
Absolutely.
it. Basically,
Which is what
like
you were
at some
saying.
point in
Cody.
time,
Yeah.
you're
Absolutely.
just
But even drinking neat, I don't drink anything over 15 years just because I like the personality of 15 years or younger. I don't like older. To me, older it becomes too subtle. I'm like, okay, what am I? Okay,
Right.
Okay, but we've had the 30-year Balvenie.
which, by the way,
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and it's hard to put anything up against
But
that.
that's a different level. That's a different game.
Right. All right.
But
I'm with
like to tie it all in, like when you for example, Blanco tequila versus vodka. Vodka is supposed to be odorless and tasteless.
Right.
So when
It's
you put
the
it in
tofu
a cocktail,
of spirits.
yes,
Yes.
hey, but when you put it together, you can really extract the other flavors. So when you do something like this, the vodka old fashioned, the Gold Coast, if you will, it allows the vodka that they use, Carlson's. You can really taste the potato on it. So I call it
cool.
like
You
the
really
anti-vodka.
I was
Yeah.
about to say it's interesting because this tastes like the most interesting vodka in the world.
Oh, it's anti-vodka. I love it.
It literally, like, you can taste that it's vodka. That's interesting to me in its own self because you taste the potato
You taste
mealiness
the
in it.
vodka-ishness of it.
Right.
If that's a word.
And this is incredibly good.
Yeah, it really is. And again, as with all the cocktails you guys have poured for us today, just very complex. I mean, there's so much going on here. If you are a person who enjoys premium anything, whether that's cigars, whether you like to order steaks that are, Wagyu beef, anything that where you enjoy the complexity of flavors that is put together, whether it's, really well-aged single malt whiskey, whatever it is, I encourage you to go check these cocktails out because there's real complexity in every one. I mean, this is the type of thing that you don't just order the cocktail and slug it back. You order the cocktail and you sit and you savor it and you think about the flavors and you pull out what's there. It's a more chef type experience, for lack of a better way to say it. And I just think that's terrific. Like there's so much going on. It isn't necessarily about, I hope I say this right. It isn't necessarily about how it all blends as much as it is about how it all works together.
The balance.
In terms of the flavors and the balance?
I think experience is a large part of it. Like the experience of let's try this with this, with this, with this. Sometimes blends, like when we talk about blending, we think, okay, well, this works well with that. But sometimes when you do things that are opposite each other, they also offset each other in a way that's pleasant, too.
Well, see, I don't think of vodka drinks other than maybe a good vodka martini as necessarily being something I would pair with a cigar. But the first thing I thought of when I tasted this is like, wow, I would love to have this on the porch or the ready room.
I usually avoid vodka because it is so neutral.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
to me, it's less interesting.
You're looking for the flavors.
Right.
And in this case, it's not neutral at all. It's got...
Well, our goal for these cocktails is to build you up till you have 2 or 3 of them, and then we get you right into the Malort section of the cocktails. and it works.
Malort, when you want to unfriend somebody.
Should I take him the Malort menu?
Malort and mayonnaise, I'm telling you, it's going to sweep the nation.
The M&M. I got it.
Malort. For the night that you're going to fight your dad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That is great. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. This has really been a great experience for us, and this experience is very much like what I had the first time that I went to the Ready Room and tried, I will admit, several different cocktails, and just enjoyed, getting to know the complexity that was in what you. So that's why I knew this was going to be a really fun show.
So I have a reason to go there because I got to try one of the Fuente. Hemingway.
You want to try a Fuente Hemingway with the
Sun Also Rises? Yeah.
We gotta try that.
In fact, that's
that Fuente, by the way, that Fuente
Hemingway
is one of the cigars that got me into smoking cigars in the first place.
It's such a brilliant smoke,
We have a Spanish cedar humidor, so we'll keep everything in there. And when you come by, we'll treat you.
Nice.
So you have a Spanish cedar humidor. Is that just for your stuff, or is it for?
That's just for our stuff, but eventually down the line, we are looking at providing a line of cigars.
Right. Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
Well, we're very excited about coming over and visiting you. We will do that very soon, and we also want to extend an invitation to you guys to come and join us for the sniff too, because the whiskey sniff is going to be a lot of fun.
All right.
All right. It has been another award-seeking edition of Smoking and Toasting. It's the show that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. On next week's show, the rubber meets the road. We're going to get down to this thing about Nat Sherman and their parent company and what it all means and who's right here.
And since we're going to do Nat Sherman, should I bring some Natty Light?
Maybe.
Yeah,
and they make some Natty Daddy
boys.
too. Have you seen Natty Daddy?
I have seen Natty Daddy.
I have not.
Natty Daddy is a new product that they make, and this is hilarious because it's $10 for 15 of them, and it's 8%.
Sounds like some Natty Daddy.
And it's 8%.
And it's 8%. Anyway,
oh, Lord.
I challenge you to make a Natty
so
Daddy
one
cocktail.
one more thing for next week too, and I should have brought it so we could have done the pass off here, but I have some Cuban cigars.
Oh.
And I am going to get one to you in the next day or two. And I want both of us to review that same Cuban next week
on
to
next
see
week's
what
show.
the differences
Yes.
are
I love
we
that idea.
taste on it.
especially because it involves you giving me a Cuban cigar.
Yeah, well,
that's one of
there
my
is
favorite.
that.
It's one of my favorite things about that idea. Yeah, that's the part I like the best.
It's probably laced in Malort. So.
Yeah.
This is a Malort dipped
dude.
Cuban.
I'm just going to tell you, you owe me on this one because that Malort experience.
I love that you don't even trust me anymore to bring anything.
No.
You don't even call me. You're like, are you going to bring anything this week? No. Now you just send me this. You're like, I got this.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody's got to step up and wear the big boy pants. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Get your tickets now for the Whiskey Sniff. They will not last long.
That's going to be awesome.
And the first 50 people get this bonus cigar from EP Carrillo, and this is something that's not even on the market yet.
Yep, won't even be out.
It's brand new. So, so there's so much going on. Thank you for sharing, and let's have a good week. Oh, we ran out of time for tasting the Mumford & Sons IPA. We will have to get to that next week. But in the meantime, we want to thank you, gentlemen, for being on the show, and cheers.
Cheers. I was thinking about it the entire time. I was like, I don't know if I should say that. 'Cause he's from Detroit.
He's been on an M&M kick for a while, dude.